We're here for one reason, one central purpose. The most powerful country in the world, with the power to annihilate the push of a button all of humanity, is just weeks away from an election that the president who is running for re-election has said is invalid and that he's preparing to steal. This is not just a president or a reactionary Republican, as we see in most elections, between two parties, neither of which represent the interests of the masses of humanity. But in this election, we are facing something different. We are facing a regime that is a fascist regime that, should they stay in power, will bring a fascist America, and that has real meaning and real difference for people here and all around the world. What these women were doing, and others yesterday, for 48 hours in these cages, it really affected me very deeply when I spoke with them and when I saw this. They are visualizing what tens of thousands of people are going through right now in concentration camps in this country, and too many people are standing aside from that. And that is unconscionable. Do not ask how the German people could have allowed Hitler to come to power if you were not out here in this square. Why are their pants bloody? Because in one of these concentration camps, women's uteruses were taken from them. Not explained. Let me just say this to you. When Donald Trump was in Minnesota and he said to the white people in that audience, "We have good genes," did you understand the relationship between that and these bloody pants? If you didn't, I will tell you. A fascist regime that is a white supremacist regime is preparing and is already carrying out the beginnings of a genocide. This is social Darwinism. This is saying the survival of the fittest. This fucking maniac got out there yesterday, I don't care what steroid he's on, and said, you know, I'm a perfect physical specimen. This is Nazi ideology. This is fascist ideology, and this is why people of color are having their wombs ripped out of their bodies. This is what you're facing. I am not spitting hyperbole. I didn't make this up. Although I have to say, last night I couldn't have quite made it up. They would have said I was exaggerating, and people did say that when we started Refuse Fascism. They said, this is not a fascist America. There's no fascist organization. Yes, there is. It's been forming for decades, and Trump has come to the head of it. And now you've seen it. You've seen it in two dimensions. You've seen it in the dimension of these fascist Proud Boys and Oath Keepers and the tens of thousands of people who are being organized right now to show up at polling places as part of the theft of this election. Before I go into that more, I want to come back to what these two young women are doing today and what others have done over the last 48 hours. Because it's not just that immigrants are in cages, but children have been separated from their parents. I want you to think and go inside the inhumanity of that. And just this week, they released the tapes of his first lapdog attorney general, Jeff Sessions, who was not enough of a psychophant that he got rid of him and has this guy Barr, who he's also now going after. And Jeff Sessions and his deputy, Rosenstein, I think his name was, said, and take the babies. Take the babies. You know, Well, I was just a young child, not really, but in the 1960s, during the Vietnam War, there was a massacre in Vietnam, a slaughter by American GIs of 150 or so Vietnamese, mostly women, older people, and babies. And some of the artists that I knew put out a poster that said, "And babies." And yes, and babies. And here we are, once again, and babies are being separated from their parents, and people are being put in cages and in concentration camps, and he's calling for law and order. They've gone into places like Portland, when somebody was suspected of potentially killing one of these fascist people who were marauding through downtown Portland, and they said, take him out, and they took him out without any trial, without any indictment, but an execution. And then they bragged about it, the same way they bragged about it in Kenosha, Wisconsin, when one of these white supremacist youth, Trump supporter, went and shot 2 brave young men. Well, actually, he shot 3 people, 3 brave young men, 2 of whom died. Don't tell us that this isn't fascism and that it doesn't have consequence. But what are we doing here? How are we going to stop this? We face a rolling coup. What does that mean? A rolling coup means that they are piece by piece seizing power. Now, it's true that Trump has power now, but they have not yet been able to fully consolidate a thoroughly fascist regime that has meaning. What is the meaning? It is an open, terroristic dictatorship, more open than what normally exists for the masses of people in this country. It means that there is no rule of law other than the rule of law that they say it is. That has real consequence. And it has real meaning for the lives of billions of people on this planet, which they are also moving very rapidly to destroy. The rolling coup is that they've already begun stealing this election. That is happening. Now, because its stakes are so high, those of us who are, like myself, a revolutionary communist, a follower of Bob Avakian, we don't normally vote in these elections, because we see that both of these parties represent the interests of the capitalist system. But in this election, it is essential that people vote to get as many votes in a landslide against Trump, because that will create more favorable conditions for the struggle that we need to wage, because he has already told you and he has shown you that even if he loses an election, he will try to nullify it through the courts, through machinations, and through intimidation by these fascist thugs. So voting is essential in this election, but it is not enough, and if that is all you do, you are collaborating with the fascist regime. There's only one way to stop this, and that is us getting organized out into the streets of this country every day from now until the election, assuming they don't get rid of him before then, because of our pressure, but we haven't built up sufficient pressure to make that happen yet. But if he's still there, we are going to need a tremendous power of masses of people that cross all political, all different social, all different gender, all different nationality lines to say, Trump, Pence, out now. One demand. We're going to come from many different places with many different analyses, many different demands. But at this moment in history, every struggle, every yearning that people have to be free has got to go through removing this regime. If we do not do that, I'm going to ask you to imagine. Usually I ask people to imagine something more along the lines of what John Lennon said. Or imagine that there was 1 million of us out here right now. And we're going to get to that in a second. But I want you first to imagine January 24th with Trump declaring that he's president for another 4 years, and he was cheated out of the first 4 years, so this is just the beginning of his reign. I want you to think about what that will mean. And for those who are caught up in this dangerous silliness that they are all the same, and I don't care, I don't care about who wins there, I'm against capitalism. Well, good for you, and I am too. But right now we got a fascist regime that's standing in front of us. And for all of you and the people you know and in your families who say, but I'm going to vote, you have to go out there and struggle with them. As Michelle was saying, to get organized, that is not enough. And in fact, if that's what you rely on, it will be a disaster. That's why I want you to imagine what he will do should he remain in power. Now, I know Michelle said I could talk for a while. I'm not going to talk that long, but I will just offer you this. You should take a close look. Go home and Google it. What the leader of India did at the beginning of his second term as a fascist leader. He declared martial law in a province, locked down the entire province of Kashmir. He denied citizenship to millions and millions of people who had been in India for some time. And he's on a rampage to turn India into a Hindu fascist theocracy. Just as right here in this country, the force that is behind and is organized behind Donald Trump is a political form of theocratic Christian fascism, symbolized and concentrated in Mike Pence. So that just brings me to how are we going to do this? How are we going to actually do this? Let's be honest, there's not that many of us here. How do the few of you become the many? Well, this is part of the answer, what the two sisters are doing here. This is part of the answer. This is putting it in people's face what this actually means today, and far worse should he stay in power. It's forcing people to confront that. It's taking some bold actions. This is one kind, there's others. Taking some bold actions, and particularly doing that in the town square, wherever that is, in a central place where we're going to be every day. So people who feel the way you feel that brought you out today on Saturday, see this as a magnet and they come. And then, once they get here, they have to be turned into what Michelle was calling grassroots organizers. That means going out and organizing people just like yourselves to come down to the square. When you organize people, you probably got to argue with them. I talked to a lot of people this morning. You got to argue with them because they think somebody else is going to take care of this. They're hoping that the election works out. Here's something else that's happening to people right now. People are being deceived by the delusions of the mainstream media who are telling you Trump is winning, Biden is winning by a lot. He's winning now, he's up in the polls even less than Hillary Clinton was. But this is not over. And you can't rely on that because he's going to steal the election. You have to make that case to people and struggle with them to come out. So that's two things. One, we're in the central square. We're doing things. We got to take some bold actions, become a pole of attraction. Two, we've got to go out and organize people. But wait, by itself, that isn't going to get us where we need to go. That won't get us where we need to go. So what's the magic sauce in here? Well, there's no magic, but there is a sauce. And here's the sauce. The sauce is this. Every day, this regime is committing another egregious and outrageous and criminal crime. Every day, people are being jolted. We, acting in the center of town, demonstrating in neighborhoods, calling people out, are acting on that stage and saying every single thing he does is another reason you should be out here. And that's one part of it. The other part of what's happening is that the Democratic Party is not fighting Trump the way he needs to be fought. That's in this pamphlet, Voting Will Not Be Enough. We need to take to the streets and stay in the streets demanding Trump pounce out now by Baba Vaki. Read part 3 of this. Because the Democrats will not wage a campaign that could really rouse the enthusiasm of people to defend black lives, to defend the environment, to go up against the white supremacy that is at the root of the oppression and police murder of black people and Latino people. It's at the root of the demonization of immigrants. It's at the root of what they're doing to women and LGBTQ people and to the environment. They will not fight it on that basis. They want to fight it on issues we can all reach across the aisle on, like health care. I'm for health care too. Your health care sucks, but it does make a difference if there is the Affordable Care Act. But that's not the grounds to get the enthusiasm of people. They're not fighting this the way it needs to be fought. And in fact, Biden has told you that he doesn't want you going out after the election because it's going to be settled by the votes. So he's told you this, and all these Democratic mass organizations, Move On, Indivisible, they're going to be listening to that. And they're mainly not preparing for the kind of struggle. You can't prepare to fight this kind of fascist movement on one day's notice. Are you kidding me? These people are armed, they're organized, they're training. We need to have a movement of the many people that's nonviolent, sustained protest, day after day, up to the election, and then after the election. So that we create a situation where people who are in power, who are basically towing the line and are themselves afraid of what Trump is doing would do to them, are forced in that situation to say, we better do something about this because now we got a bigger problem. We got a bigger problem. We got the masses of people in the streets, which is what we saw in June and July. You don't know the power you had in June and July. You've got to think about what power you had. That's not being summed up correctly. Oh, we did June and July, now we can go change some local ordinance, which of course, you should change these local ordinances around chokeholds and all of this. But you changed the discussion in this country to admit that this is a white supremacist society from its inception. People did not say that in power ever before that. That's because of what you did. Now we need that same power in the streets. We are not just aiming to be in the town square every day doing things like this. This is to awaken the people so that we get tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands and eventually millions of people in the street to say, no, this Trump regime must go, and now. That's what we're doing. So to repeat, we are creating a magnet, a pole of attraction by taking bold action and being out every day. People come to the square, they get materials to go out and organize in the neighborhoods. And we tell them you're not just organizing on a flat ground, you're organizing on a very rocky terrain where there's all kinds of big bumps in the road. This maniacal, homicidal, okay, I'll stop with the curses of Trump. This fascist in power is doing things every day, and that provides the basis for people to see that what you represent out here today, with your signs, with your fuck racism t-shirt, with your Trump Pence Out Now t-shirt, with your Revolution Nothing Less t-shirt, with all these different t-shirts, Black Lives Matter t-shirt back there, all these t-shirts, America was never great over here. All these people can come together with one single demand. And you know what? We have some differences, probably big ones. What better way to start discussing those differences than standing shoulder to shoulder and fighting against a fascist regime? So this is our charge. This is our charge. Now, fewer people have started mass movements in history. You can't be deterred by that. They will call you names. They will say you're foolish. They'll tell you to wait. They'll tell you to be patient. They'll tell you to do it the right way. Just vote. Well, you should vote in this election to vote against Trump, but that is not enough. And we have to fight for that. We have to be out here, and we have to reach out to people, and we have to struggle very hard with it. Not for ourselves. These women did. You know, I just want to say one more thing about this, because we spoke, and I don't want to tell on people, but these were tearful conversations, and they should be. Because if you have a beating heart in your body, if you have any soul, you are not going to let a society that's got its knee on the neck of humanity the way this regime does. So we have to go into this with a tremendous amount of heart. And I just want to say, and close with this. Now, people do this all the time. This is the first time. You're the first ones to ever watch me try to do something on a cell phone in public, okay? Refuse Fascism has a pledge. You'll hear the whole pledge. I urge you to watch the show that I host and the show that's doing the filming here, the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. You will see Dr. Cornel West and the great R&B singer Layla Hathaway reading this pledge at the beginning of the current episode. It's on YouTube at the RevComs. I'm just going to read from the end of this pledge, because it is what's in my heart. I think it's what's in your heart if you're out here today. No longer can we live with howling mobs resurrecting Jim Crow, fascist thugs attacking our protests, the right to vote stolen by defenders of the Confederacy. We will not worship the flag or accept the theocracy. We will not become collaborators on a march to a racist genocide. We will not hand the future to the scorchers of the planet. 4 more years, 4 more months, and it could be too late to change the course of history as the Trump-Pence regime sabotages the election and drags humanity to the edge of extinction. Here and now, we pledge to unite in our millions, rising together in nonviolent resistance to stop a great horror. We pledge to stay in the streets, overcoming fear and uncertainty until this American fascism has been brought to a halt. And we pledge our determination to prevail over a regime that imperils the people of the world and the earth itself. Say with me, in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. Now, one last point. It's just a postscript. But these bloody pants, I said, were about the hysterectomies that have been done to immigrants in detention camps. But come Monday, a theocratic Christian fascist is going to be nominated and railroaded into the Supreme Court. This is somebody who's being put in the court and rushed into the court now to be able to ratify the election of Donald Trump. But it's worse than that. This is somebody who is determined to, by her faith, her conviction, and what she has said in law, to overturn the right of women to abortion, the right of women to birth control, who belongs to an organization that is actually where she was called a handmaid, subordinate to her husband and subordinate to men. This is somebody who, along with 2 other Supreme Court justices, believes that extending the marriage right to LGBTQ people was wrong. This is someone who will deny health care for pre-existing conditions. The bloody pants need to be out here again this week, along with that handmaid's uniform and garb, and bring to people again to shock the conscience. And we should go through the shopping malls. We should make the shoppers confront this. Not be rude, not spit revenge at people, not getting angry at them because they have money for a nice meal. That's not the point. We have to bring to them the truth that what is coming down the pike is a great horror for humanity, for half of humanity and even more. And that we cannot conscience. So once again, say with me, in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. Thank you very much. We'll see you every day in the streets.